Hello guys, today we are going to review the movie The Last Samurai that came in 2003, and let's talk about its full movie review and its facts. Then start with that is it starts with its overview title The Last Samurai. It's released in 2003. It's directed by Edward Zwick, and it's action, adventure, drama, historical movie. And its runtime was approximately 154 minutes. And it's a R rating for violence, language, and thematic elements. And if we talk about starring Tom Cruise, Ken Watanabe, Timothy Spall, Tony Goldwyn, Hiroyuki Sanada, and others. And if we talk about plot summary, The Last Samurai is a historical drama set in late 19th century Japan during the Meiji Restoration, a period of rapid modernization and westernization. The film follows US military veteran Captain Nathan Elzon, a disillusioned and haunted soldier who is hired by the Japanese government to help train their new imperial army, suppressing rebellious samurai warriors resisting modernization. And if we talk about Algerian is captured in battle and taken prisoner by the samurai led by their vulnerable leader, Katsumoto Ken Watanabe. Over time, Algern is integrated into their community, learning their code of honor, discipline, and way of life. As he becomes immersed in their culture, he begins to question his own beliefs and the legitimacy of the imperial modernization efforts. The film explores themes of honor, tradition versus progress, cultural identity, and redemption. It culminates in a climatic battle between the samurai and the imperial army, with Olgun fighting alongside his new friends to defend their way of life. And if we talk about its key facts and details, first thing that came in mind is historical context. The film is set during the Meiji Restoration, a pivotal period when Japan transitioned from feudal rule to modern industrial state. The samurai, once a ruling warrior class, faced decline and disbandment as Japan adopted Western military and technological practice. The story is fictionalized, totally inspired by real events, notably the Satsuma Rebellion 1877, led by Saigo Takamori, a famous samurai leader. And if we talk about production facts, its budget was estimated It 140 million and its box office grossed approximately 456 million worldwide, making it a commercial success. And if we talk about its mm, filming locations, then primarily shot in New Zealand with some scenes filmed in Japan. And if we talk about an historical consultant, the filmmaker consulted experts to accurately depict samurai culture and early Meiji Japan. And if we talk about cast and characters, we talk about cast and characters, and Tom Cruise as Captain Nathan Elgin, a morally conflicted American soldier seeking redemption. Ken Watanabe as Katsumoto, a wise noble samurai leader and a key figure representing traditional Japan. And we talk about Hiroyuki Sanada as Uziyo, Katsumoto's loyal samurai warrior, and Timothy Spall as Jubilant Gant, an American military officer. Tony Goldwyn as Colonial Bagley Elgin's commanding officer. Koyuki as Taka Kasumoto's daughter and Algerian's love interest. And if we talk about critical themes and analysis, first that come in mind is clash of cultures. The film vividly contrasts Western military technology and traditional samurai way of life. It explores how modernization can threaten cultural identities and values, raising question about progress versus preservation. And if we talk about honor and Bushido, the samurai code of honor, Bushido is central to their identity. The film celebrates virtues like loyalty, discipline, and sacrifice, positioning a samurai as embodying noble ideas. And if we talk about redemption and personal growth, Aljan's journey from disillusioned soldier to someone who find purpose and honor in the samurai way reflects themes of redemption, healing, and cultural respect. If we talk about political and social changes, the film depicts the turmoil of social upheaval, portraying the loss of tradition amidst the push toward modernization and the tragic consequences of cultural suppression. And if we talk about cinematic elements, visual stunning cinematography captures the landscape of New Zealand, evoking the beauty and serenity of nature intertwined with martial combat. And if we talk about costumes, the film pays meticulous attention to traditional samurai armor and clothing, blending historical authenticity with cinematic flair. And if we talk about music composed by Hans Zimmer, the score blends Western orchestration with traditional Japanese instruments, enhancing the film's emotional depth. If we talk about its choreography, samurai swords fight are choreographed with realism and grace, emphasizing martial discipline and honor. And if we talk about reception and critical response, critical acclaim, the film received generally positive reviews for its performances Direction, cinematography, and cultural depiction. We talk about awards and nominations. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Sound Editing, and Best Cinematography. If we talk about criticism, some critics argued that Tom Cruise's casting as a Japanese character was problematic and that the film simplified complex historical realities. And if we talk about interesting facts and trivia, can Watanabe's breakout role the film significantly boosted Watanabe's international career? Tom Cruise's commitment. Cruise trained extensively in horseback riding, swordsmanship, and martial arts to prepare for his role. If we talk about cultural aspect, the filmmaker made effort to accurately portray samurai tradition, consulting Japanese historians and martial arts experts. And if we talk about music and score, the soundtrack, especially the use of traditional Japanese instruments, was praised for enhancing the film's emotional and cultural atmosphere. And if we talk about historical inspiration, the story loosely reflect the 1877 Satsuma rebellions led by Saigo Takamori. Thought the film's plot is fictionalized. And if we talk about legal and cultural impact, cultural appreciation, the film helped popularize samurai culture, globally inspiring interest in Japanese history and martial art. If we talk about educational use, it's often used in classroom to discuss modernization, cultural respect, and historical content. And if we talk about criticism and decision, the casting of Tom Cruise as a Japanese character sparked debates about representation and cultural authenticity. And if we talk about conclusion, The Last Samurai stands as a visual stunning and emotionally compelling film that explores profound themes of honor, tradition, and cultural changes. While it has faced some criticism regarding casting and historical accuracy, it remains an influential work that celebrates the noble ideals of the samurai and the complex process of social transformation. Its enduring appeal lies in its universal message about respect for tradition, the importance of personal integrity, and the tragic beauty of cultural extinction in the face of relentless progress. And let's talk about more. And if we talk about The Last Samurai 2003, an extensive full review in depth analysis and fascinating facts. If we talk about introduction, setting the stage for cultural epic, The Last Samurai is more than a film, it is a cinematic tribute to a pivotal era in Japanese history, a story that intertwines themes of honor, cultural resilience, personal redemption, and inevitable march of progress, released in 2003 and directed by Edward Zick. The film combines epic storytelling, stunning visuals, and a compelling exploration of cultural identity centered around an American soldier caught between worlds. The film depicts the clash between traditional samurai values and the forces of modernization, driven by the messy resort station. It's an epic that seeks to humanize warp and samurai warriors portraying the code of Bushido as noble and tragic, while also examines the cost of social upheaval. This extensive review aims to delve deeply into every fact of the film, its plot nuance, historical accuracy, thematic layer, character arc, cinematic craftsmanship, cultural significance, behind the scene. Offering a comprehensive detail and length exploration. We talk about deep dive into the plot and narrative structure. Openings, if we talk about opening scene stabilizing the world, the film begins with scenes of lush Japanese landscape tradition, religion, and discipline. Routines of samurai life, the tranquil opening set a tone of respect and reverence for Japanese cultural and tradition voice over fiction or visual cues introduce viewers to the era of Japan on the cusp of radical changes between its feudal past and emerging music modernity. Nathan Allen's introduction, the man of war and bound, Captain Nathan Allen is introduced as haunted alcoholic civil war veteran suffering from guilt over his past violence. His character embodies disillusionment and moral conflict. He is hired by the Japanese government to train their new army, which aims to suppress the samurai resistance. Arjun is portrayed as a wounded soldier, both physically and emotionally, symbolizing the destructive legacy of warfare and the moral dilemmas faced by soldiers. His initial interaction reflects a sense of alienation from the culture he is about to engage with. If we talk about the battle and capture transition to the samurai world, and then first we'll see Japan. Depict a brutal, chaotic battle where he fights for the imperial army against the samurai rebels. His sight is affected and he is captured by Kasumoto's warrior. This pivotal moment marks his transition from outsider to prisoner, setting the stage for his eternal transformation. And if we talk about integration and cultural immersion, Katsumoto can Watanabe, the wise samurai leader, treats Arjun with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Over time, Arjun begins to learn about the samurai's Bushido's code, values of loyalty, discipline, honor, and sacrifice. He observed their daily routine, martial arts, and ceremonies, gradual gaining respect and understanding. This process of cultural immersion is depicted through scenes of swordmanship, meditation, and community rituals, emphasizing the depth of samurai tradition. If we talk about personal growth and moral awakening, as Arjun adopts the samurai's way of life, he confronts his own past violence and moral followings. His relationship with Kasumoto becomes central, with mutual respect and mentorship developing. The film explores how personal redemption is intertwined with cultural understanding. The rising conflict, modernization versus tradition, Meanwhile, the Japanese government, under the influence of Western advisor, pushes forward with rapid modernization. The Sonic samurai clans introducing Western style armies and adopting adopting new technology. This creates a tense factor of cultural conflict and political upheaval. Katsumoto and his followers symbolizes and dying tradition, fighting to preserve their way of life. The imperial army, now equipped with rifles and artillery, represent the new Japan's progressive but losing its soul. The climax, the Battle of the Sacred Mountain. The final act is a dramatic, visually stunning battle on Mount Enko where the samurai, led by Katsumoto, faces overwhelming firepower despite their skills and discipline. They are outgunned, fighting alongside them embodies loyalty and sacrifice. The battle ends tragically, many samurai fall. Katsumoto is mortally wounded and Alman is left to mourn his fallen comrades. The film emphasizes themes of sacrifices, tug-of-war-rich themes, and philosophical underpinning. The clash of culture and civilization. The central themes examines the collision between tradition and modernity. The samurai symbolizes pledge of honor, discipline, and social stability, while the Western influence imperial government embodies technological progress and political change. The film questions whether progress must come at the expense of cultural identity and whether tradition can adapt or must be sacrificed. We talk about honor, Bushido, and sacrifice. The Bushido code is portrayed as a noble, almost spiritual set of virtues that defines the samurai's way of life. It emphasizes loyalty to Lord and a family, self-discipline, and readiness to die for one's belief. The film celebrates these virtues but also highlights their tragic consequences when confronted with the realities of modern warfare. if we talk about redemption and personal transformation, Arjun's journey from disillusioned soldier haunted by violence to a man who finds purpose and honor among the samurai illustrates themes of redemption. His character arc embodies the possibility of moral renewal through cultural understanding and personal sacrifice. If we talk about cultural preservation versus change, Katsumoto and his followers represent the enduring spirit of tradition, resisting the past that seek to erase their way of life. The film explores whether cultural survival is possible or it inevitably succumbs to technological and political forces. The cost of progress. The film depicts the tragic consequences of rapid modern loss of cultural identity, destruction of social cohesion, and the brutal separation of proud warrior class. When we talk about character profile and development, Nathan Arjun background, a civil war veteran suffering from guilt and alcoholism, transformation from a broken man to a noble warrior, discovering honor and purpose. Symbolism embodies the vast, complex relationship with violence, redemption, and cultural understanding. If we talk about Katsumoto background, a noble samurai, a guardian of tradition, leadership by discipline and compassionate symbolism represent the nobility and tragedy of perpetuating tradition. Tagonochi role Katsumoto's loyal retainer and warrior development, loyal to his lord, but also pragmatic and caring. And if you talk about Taka, role Katsumoto's daughter and elegance love interest, symbolism of represent hope, continuity, and cultural integrity. And if we talk about Colonel Bagley, Western and role embodying embody the failure of modernization push and Western modernism. Influence, and if we talk about the themes, the destructive aspect of yeah, to make a little bit, guys. And if we talk about cinematic craftsmanship and artistic elements, visual spectacle, the film cinematography, the breathtaking if we talk about costume and set design, authentic samurai armor, traditional clothing, and period appropriate weapons are meticulously recreated. Production design immerses viewers in the late Edo period Japan. Current sound design Hans Zimmer's score masterfully blends Western orchestration with traditional Japanese instruments like the samisen and saxophone, creating an emotive soundscape, ambient sounds and silence, higher emotional mood and combat scene. We talk about direction and pacing. Edward Civic balances intimate character moments with large scale battle scenes, maintaining emotional engagement and narrative movement. And talk about inspiration, the 1827 Sasema rebellion led by Seigo Takamori is a major historical influence. The character and specific plot points are fictional. We talk about authenticity. Efforts were made to accurately portray samurai culture, traditional martial arts, and period settings. For simplification, some critics argue that the film romanticizes the samurai and simplifies complex political realities. If we talk about critical reception and cultural impact, we talk about critical reception and cultural impact. Critical acclaim praised for the epic scope, performance, cinematography, and emotional depth. Ken Watanabe's portrayal of Katsumoto earned widespread acclaim, including an Oscar nomination, awards, and nomination for Academy Award nomination, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Sound Editing, Best Cinematography, Golden Globe nomination, and other accolades. If we talk about controversies and decision, Tom Cruise's casting as Japanese character drew criticism regarding cultural representation. The film sparked conversation about Hollywood's portrayal of non-Western cultural and historical accuracy. We talk about cultural legacy. The film inspired Gage's interest in samurai culture, martial arts, and Japanese history. Its theme of honor and cultural resilience remain relevant in decisions about global cultural preservation. If we talk about fascinating fact and behind the scene insight, Tom Cruise's preparation underwent intensive martial arts training, horseback riding and swordsmanship to authentically portray a girl. Ken Watanabe, his performance launched his international career and earned him an Oscar nomination. We talk about filming location, primarily shot in New Zealand with some scenes in Japan too. In an authenticity, if we talk about music, the soundtrack integration of traditional instruments was carefully curated to reflect Japanese cultural themes. If we talk about authentic costume designer Gila Dixon, who worked on the Lord of the Rings, ensured strictly themes. With our authentic costume designer Nicola Dixon, who worked on the land of the rings, ensured historical accuracy. We talk about authentic costume designer Nicola Dixon, who worked on the Lord of the Rings, ensured historical accuracy. Our historical consultants, the production team consulted Japanese historians and martial arts experts to honor the samurai traditions. We talk about thematic and cultural significance. Respect for tradition, the film celebrates the nobility of samurai values. We talk about universal themes on the sacrifice, redemption, and cultural resilience, transcend time and place, reflection and modernization, encourages you to consider the costs and benefits of social progress. Global cultural dialogue promotes understanding and appreciation of Japanese history and culture. Without conclusion and final thoughts, The last samurai is an ambitious and visually stunning. The picture explores profound themes of personal identity, honor, and transformation. While it has faced criticism, our cultural representation and historical significance its emotional depth, complements storytelling, and respectful portrayal of samurai ideals have cemented its place as a significant work in modern cinema. The film's enduring message advocates for respect of tradition and inevitable sense and highlight the nobility of values like loyalty to human sacrifice. It's a powerful narrative continuing to resonate with audience worldwide, inspiring reflection on the importance of cultural heritage and personal integrity. Let's talk about more. Jaguar, Last Samurai, an epic in-depth analysis, review and cultural reflection, introduce an epic saga rooted in cultural history. Last Samurai is a cinematic masterpiece that transcends mere storytelling to become a cultural and a philosophical exploration of honor, tradition, modernization, and personal transformation. Directed by Edward Sweet, the film was released in 2003 and has since become a touchstone for decision about cultural preservation, the cost of progress, and the enduring power of noble virtues. The film is set during the turbulent late 19th century in Japan, a period marked by the political upheaval of Meiji generation, which aimed to modernize Japan by adopting Western technology, regulatory practice, and social reforms at the heart of this upheaval are the struggle of the warrior class, embodied a centuries-old code of ethics and martial discipline facing extinction as the imperial government seeks to centralize modernized nation. The samurai follows a delusion American soldier, Nathan Alden, who through a series of transformative events become a bridge between two worlds, Western and Eastern, modern and traditional. The film explores profound themes depicting the tragic history of beauty of finding era and the resilience of cultural identity. If we talk about an exhaustive breakdown of the plot and narrative of the opening sequence setting the tone, the movie opens its sweeping shots of lush Japanese landscape, mountains, forest-sized paddies paired with tradition, musical ambient sounds, immersing viewers in the serene yet tense atmosphere of Japanese tradition. These visuals stabilizes the cultural and historical setting and evoke a sense of nostalgia. The opening section or visual cues introduce the more complex Japanese rapid modernization threatens to wipe out its ancient tradition, and the samurai once the ruling class are now resting the encroaching tide of Western influence. Therefore, introducing of Nathan Alden's the wanted warrior. Alden's character is introduced as a deeply troubled and a veteran of the American Civil War and Indian Wars, plagued by guilt over his past violence. He is an alcoholic, emotionally distant, and searching for redemption. His character development is central to the story, representing the Western soldier's internal struggle with morality and violence. If we talk about introduction of Nathan Alden, the haunted warrior, Alden's character is introduced as deeply Alden's character is introduced when a veteran of the American Civil War and Indian War, plagued by guilt over his past work. He is an alcoholic, emotionally distant, and searching for redemption. His character development is essential to the story, presenting the Western soldier's eternal morality and violence. Violence is hired by the Japanese government to train the new army, which is intended to suppress the samurai rebellion. His initial attitude is cynical, disconnected from the cultural significance of the task, viewing it as just another military job. Talk about the battle and capture transition into the samurai realm. The subsequent scene depict his captivity not as a mere prisoner exchange but as a journey into understanding different value. We talk about cultural immersion and learning. Katsumoto treats Alden with suspicion and also curiosity over time. Alden observes and learns about the samurai's costumes, martial arts, and philosophies. Scenes of sword training, meditation, tea ceremonies, and traditional rituals serve as lessons emphasizing the depth and richness of samurai culture. Through these interactions, Alden's worldview begins to shift. He witnessed the discipline, honor, and spirituality that define the samurai ethos, contrasting sharply with his previous experience of violence as a means of survival. We talk about personal growth and moral awakening. Alden's eternal transformation is driven by his relationship with Katsumoto and other samurai. His growing respect for their code of honor prompts him to question his own past action and believes his faith is one of redemption and reconciliation and the miracle so they finding a new purpose in defending a way of life is once misunderstood. Seen by personal reflection, mentorship, and comedy as when the transformation audience begins to embody the message of physical loyalty, integrity, and sacrifice. Talk about rising tension and political climax. Meanwhile, the Japanese government, influenced by Western advisors and military modernization, seeks to dismantle the Sumerian tradition. The dismemberment of samurai clans, the classification of swords, and the deployment of modern weaponry create mountain tension. We talk about Katsumo and his father refusing the return of samurai clans, the confiscation of sword, and then there is the face of life. The Battle of Mount Embo, the final stand. This epic visual stunning battle is a vibrant depiction of sacrifice and cultural resilience. The samurai fighting with their tradition, swords, and discipline to stand against the modern imperial army equipped with precise cannons and artillery. And we talk about Katsumoto leads the charge, embodying nobility and resolve, even as he faces mortal wounds. Ilzen fights valiantly alongside his newcomers. The battle is brutal. Many samurai fall, and Katsumoto's death marks the tragic end of an era. And we talk about aftermath and reflection. The aftermath portrays the suppression of samurais in the shipping change introduced by monetization, all the mourning his friends and the loss of their culture symbolizes the tragic but noble passing of a proud tradition. The final scene are contemplative, emphasizing respect, remembrance, and hope for continuity amid change. If we talk about in-depth analysis of themes and philosophical layers, the class of culture and civilization, at its core, the film examines the coalition between traditional Japanese values and Western modernization. The samurai represent saving ways and hope for cultural continuity and independence of themes and philosophical layers and philosophical civilization. At its core, the film examines the collision between traditional Japanese values and Western modernization. The samurai represent a society rooted in unstable discipline and spiritual discipline. Their resistance symbolizes the preservation of culture identity in the face of global change. The imperial government, with Western advisors and new military technology, embodies progression and innovation, but it defense of cultural heritage. The film raises questions: is progress worth sacrificing tradition? Can culture evolve without losing their essence? The mercy of Bushido and noble sacrifice. The Bushido code remits the film portraying the samurai as embodiments of loyalty, self-control, humility, and sacrifice. Matsumoto's leadership exemplifies these ideals. His unwavering commitment to his people and his willingness to die for his beliefs. The film emphasizes these virtues but also explores their tragic cost, how unwavering adherence to tradition can lead to self-destruction in a changing world. Talk about personal redemption and moral growth. Violence transformation about from a resilience guilt despite to a noble protector underscore themes of redemption. His immersion in samurai culture help him confront his past violence, find purpose, and restore his sense of honor. His character embodies the idea that understanding and respect can bridge cultural divides and that true honor comes from moral integrity, not violence. We talk about cultural preservation and resistance. Quasimodo and his followers symbolize resilience, standing firm against the forces that seek to ameliorate their way of life. Their resistance is portrayed as noble, tragic, and ultimately inspiration. The film prompts viewers to consider the importance of safeguarding cultural heritage in an era of globalization and rapid change. The tragedy of progress that vividly depicts the destructive consequences of technologies and political progress. Cultural or social upheaval and presence. sacrifice it questions whether progress is always positive or if it sometimes erases the very identity that defines a society. Carries life and their symbolic significance. We talk about Nathan Algren, we talk about background. And if we talk about Katsumoto personality wise, blind, compassionate, and unwavering. Symbolism embodies the vulnerability of the samurai spirit and the tragic decline of traditional Japan. Leadership of father figure to his followers and a symbol of registration. We talk about Taka, Katsumoto's doctor, adolescent's love interest. We talk about significance, represent hope, continuity, and the preservation of cultural values across generation. Uchiyo loyalty, Katsumoto's trusted trainer, and warrior. We talk about development, demonstrates unwavering loyalty and the human cost of resistance. We talk about Western advisor and imperial official role embody modernization, imperialism, Western influence, themes, the destructive side of technological progression, and political equivalency, cinematic craftsmanship, and artistic elements. Visual composition, cinematography, cinematographer John Tone captures majestic landscape, intimate character movements, and shows battle sequence. The use of natural light, lush scenery, and slow motion combat scenes high-end emotional impact. The contrast between the serene landscape and brutal battle emphasizes the dichotomy of peace and war. If we talk about costume and set design, authentic period costumes and setting reflect meticulous historical research. The costume symbolizes social hierarchy, cultural identity, and personal honor. And if we talk about musical score and sound design, and Zimmer score blends orchestral music with traditional percussion instruments enhancing selects the sound of swords, clashing, horse, galloping, and this sound viewers in the setting, the direction and editing. The directs balance jazz scale action with intimate character movements. Pacing allows viewers to connect emotionally with characters before the chaos of battle. If we talk about historical context and artistic liabilities, we have inspiration from real events. The film draws inspiration from the Satsuma Rebellion led by Saigo Takamori, a legendary samurai who opposed modernization. The fictional character had a specific storyline are dramatized but rooted in the real social upheaval. If we talk about cultural and historical accuracy, efforts were made to depict traditional samurai practice, martial acts, and costume accurately. The film's portrayal of the disappointment of samurai clans and the introduction of Western military techniques reflect historical realities. We talk about artistic license and criticism. Critics argue that some aspects romanticize samurai culture, gloss over complex political realities, and oversimplify historical conflict. Tom Cruise's casting as the one character was controversial, sparking debates about cultural representation. Talk about critical reception and cultural impact. Critical acclaim and awards, widely praised for its epic performance, especially Watanabe's cinematography and score. Nominated for 4 Academy Awards and multiple Golden Globes, Watanabe's portrayal gained international recognition, elevating his career. If we talk about cultural and academic decisions, If we talk about behind the scene and fascinating facts from business preparation, and rigorous martial art aspect and silencing training can widen his compelling performance and an Oscar nomination and launches his international career. If we talk about film location, primarily shot in New which seems in Japan for authenticity. We talk about music and sound. Use of traditional instrument and ambition. Ambient sound was careful curated. We Japanese cultural themes. We talk about costume design, Maggie Dixon, keynote of her work on the world of the things, historical accuracy. We talk about cultural consultants, experts in Japanese history, martial arts and culture contributed to the film's authentic thematic and cultural significance in a global context. Universal message the film explores universal themes of honor, sacrifice, and resilience that resonate across cultural. We talk about cultural preservation highlights the importance of respecting and preserving cultural heritage amid rapid change. If we talk about globalization, challenge how traditional societies navigate modern pressures without losing their identity. If we talk about confusion and legacy, the last samurai remains a monumental work that celebrates the nobility of tradition and the tragedy of cultural extinction. It's a portrayal of honor, sacrifice, and resilience. Despite debates about cultural authenticity and historical accuracy, the film power and visual can just make it a timeless epic. It urges viewers to reflect on the importance of misunderstanding and respecting diverse cultures and increasing engagement while it remains relevant today, reminding us that progress should honor the values and see that shape societies. And if we talk about more, it will take little time, so you have to wait, guys. If we talk about The Last Samurai, an epic, exhaustive analysis and personal reflection, introduction, and cinematic ode to honor tradition and stand The Last Samurai is not merely a film, it's a sprawling cultural epic that engages with profound themes of honor, sacrificing cultural resilience, and inevitable strides of modernization directed by Edward Liu. The film was released in 2003 amid cinematic landscape eager for stories that blend action, history, and philosophy. It was set against the tumultuous backdrop of Japan's Meiji Renaissance. The narrative explores how to crowd warrior class faces obligation in the face of rapid Western influence modernization. It is a story of personal transformation, cultural preservation, and the tragic beauty of tragic fading transition. The central character Nathan Argan is an archetype of the Western hero haunted by his seeking redemption and ultimately finding purpose in the culture for his own. His journey symbolizes the crossing of cultural boundaries, understanding, and respect. This comprehensive review aims to delve into every element of the book. Its plot, intrigue, character dynamics, cinematic artistry, thematic depth, and its thematic depth, historical context behind the scene, stories, and its enduring cultural significance, making it one of the most vicious and detailed analysis to create. It also inspired on detailed plot breakdown and narrative construction. And we talk about introduction that an upload hero in crisis. Our character is introduced as a deeply troubled man, a veteran of the American Civil War and Indian War, plagued by guilt over his past violence and loss of innocence. His alcoholism and emotional detachment symbolize the destructive legacy of war and violence, which hiring by the Japanese government to train the new army to suppress the samurai rebellion signifies his role as an outsider soldier caught in the crossfires of history. His initial attitude is cynical, detached from the cultural significance of his task, viewing it as just another military obligation. If we talk about the battle and success transition into a new world, Toga during fierce and shouting battle, Algerian side suffers a devastating defeat. The scene is